Sound check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Sanchez. I'm a politics reporter with KJZZ News, and I will be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Voters that are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time by email at debates@kc-a.com, text 408-302-1810, or call 480-937-1253. We may not get to all audience questions, but we will do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from candidates in Legislative District 14, which covers a slice of the Southeast Valley, including much of Gilbert. As this is a primary election debate, candidates are competing against others in their party to become the official party nominee. All registered voters, including independent voters, can vote in the primary. Independent voters can choose a single party ballot if they wish to vote. We will kick off the evening by hearing first from the candidates in the House, who will debate their partisan opponent for approximately an hour. Candidates, you will have 1 minute for your opening and closing statements and 1 to 2 minutes for your responses to voter questions. We encourage an open exchange of dialogue between opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments after they conclude speaking, you may do so. I may limit responses for time management purposes, and we remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so the electorate may vote informed. Candidates running for the House are Republicans Andrew Jackson and Joel Cohen. Kyle Powell, Lauren Hendricks, and Leilani Hunsaker were invited to attend but declined to participate. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting for opening comments. Closing comments will go in reverse order. So, Mr. Cohen, will you start with opening remarks, please?
Yeah, hello, my name is Joel Cohen, and I obviously am running for House of Representatives in District 14, and I decided to run based off of a component of being able to help provide a service for the people within our district. I started my business here in 2012 and have been able to raise my children within Gilbert, and I've been able to be a part of a lot of great things within the state of Arizona, and I'm incredibly proud to be considered a citizen. And when my son went off to West Point this last year, there was a gap in our lives where we decided to say, what can we do to truly make a difference for the people that have given us so much as a family? And as we watch him dedicate his life to service, I wanted to do the very same. And that is why I'm running for House of Representatives in District 14. And I'm glad to be here today.
I muted myself. Thank you very much. Now it's your turn, Dr. Jackson.
My name is Andrew Jackson. I'm running because Arizona is 1 inch from becoming California, and it troubles me. And I decided, because of my leadership background for many, many years, and looking at the situation, I know most of the people down at the legislature. One of them asked me if I would consider running, and it wasn't something I ever had in my mind. I've never ran for politics before. And so I decided to step forward and try to make a difference. I was born in Rainier Beach Projects in Seattle. My family moved out to the airport area, which is a lower middle class area. I grew up in a working class family. It was like a liberal, classical liberal kind of family, JFK Democratic family. And it was more when I was a younger boy that I was influenced during the Reagan administration and Ronald Reagan. And that's when I became a Republican. I've lived in Gilbert, Arizona for 28 years. So I know my district. I know this district. I know the people. And I've seen, when I first moved here, it was cotton fields and horses and cows. And now it's 280,000 people. I pastored for 22 years in evangelical Protestant churches, 2 very large churches. The last one had 5,000 in attendance a weekend. I'm also served as a professor in numerous seminaries and also universities. I also taught at Mesa Community College, Gilbert Community College. So I've been involved also in the education area in Arizona. I got my doctorate in Boston in biblical history. My specialty is in Israel and Turkey.
You are slightly over, so I'll ask you to just wrap it up.
I studied a year in Jerusalem, So I never plan, like I said, I never planned to run, but I'm stepping forward to do it, and I will make a difference. I will make a difference, and I just want to thank the Clean Elections for having us in this time. Tom and Brian and Cameron, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. To kick things off, something I like to ask candidates is if you have an area of expertise or priority, a particular passion, something that you want to address and be a part of when you hit the ground running. And we'll go back to you, Dr. Jackson.
My main umbrella topic is families. All of society is built on families. And unfortunately, I don't know any politician in this race, not just in our specific district, but also in Arizona, that has focused in on families. Most policy issues are often fragmented, but if you look at all of them, they all go back to the family. And so I am very passionate that if we can, I think there's 2,800,000 household units in Arizona. And we often look at individuals. We just kind of think that, but families are really, if we can deal with the protection and the strengthening of families, it will impact everything in the area of the political and social realm, also the moral realm, the values realm as well. So my overall priority is families.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, same question to you.
Yeah, so I mean, there's really one area in which we've done really well, and I've done well, I believe, and that is in the area of the economy and in business. In 2015, I won Small Business of the Year in Gilbert. 2016, won Business of the Year in Chandler, and I've been a part of, through my business, being able to negotiate with C-level executives for the last decade. And part of that has been able to learn the art of negotiation and being able to get to the point in which you can get things accomplished. I think that that's something that overall running for the House of Representatives is something that is absolutely critical, is being able to get people together and get things done. And that's something that I've done for quite a long time. And in addition to that, our family has been very well involved when it comes to first responders and it comes to our military. My wife and I have been involved with nonprofits throughout the state and in the state of Colorado for most of our lives. And we've done that through raising $2 million for Gold Star families, through time that we spent with Foster Arizona, time that I've spent on the board of trustees at the Phoenix Art Museum, and just consistently giving back to the community. And I can't say enough about what Andrew just said. Families are a critical component of the structure of everything. And that's a huge part of what we've tried to support as well.
Can I talk a little bit about the economy? Okay. One of my concerns in Arizona is we're moving to a two-tiered economic system. And the reason of that, and we're very proud of all the chip manufacturing, the big chip companies, Amazon, we kind of pride ourselves, and I hear that all the time. But unfortunately, America was built on a large and expanding middle class. And our economic system right now is shrinking the middle class. And in light of that, we're going to have a two-tiered system. It's very true around the world. I've traveled all over the world. They are a two-tiered economy. And now America is going that way. After the Cold War, when they shipped all of the manufacturing jobs overseas, what you have done, because I grew up in a working class family. My father ran a manufacturing company, and they could, even just with a high school education, they could make a living. And now we are creating a situation where you have more of the wealthy, those that are in these big companies that really are shipping in workers. They bring their own workers from where they're coming from. So if we don't deal with those that just have a high school education, people that want to work with their hands, people that are at that level, we're going to have an increase of crime. We're going to have an increase in addiction, and it will really affect families. So I just want us to, one of the things that I want to see us address is look at the holistic understanding of the economy in Arizona.
May I add to that, if that's okay?
Oh, of course.
I think a huge part of that is our education system. And I couldn't agree more that trade is dying. And we've got to do whatever we can to help make sure that our kids have the opportunity to learn the trades that right now are paying often six-figure salaries. And we don't necessarily have what's in place right now that's necessary to help them learn those jobs. These are opportunities to bring the middle class back. And so education has got to be one huge component of that. And while we're looking at 28 separate chip manufacturers that are coming into the state of Arizona, what are we doing as a state to help make sure that our kids have the best opportunity to learn what it means to be working within those environments and give them the opportunity to have those jobs as opposed to have those jobs coming in from other states?
Yeah, as it relates, can I, Cameron, speak on that education just briefly because I
Yes.
agree
And I'm going to ask
that.
you guys to ask some questions too.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just add this and then we can move on. You can even come back to these subjects. But the whole issue of bringing up trades, this is crucial that in high school that we have two tracks, those that want to focus in on college and those that want to go into trades. And I'd say almost their sophomore year that they do that. An example is my son. My son struggled in high school. He hated high school in the sense he thought it was so boring. But he got hired out of high school by SRP, and now he's a journeyman and he works on high voltage electrical substations. He works on our nuclear plant, and he's doing extremely, extremely well. The reason is, and he had to deal with high math with electricity, but the issue is when they mentored him on putting his hands on someone, when math was relevant to what he was doing, he learned it like that. So we just have this one system of teaching, and we got to break that. And we need two tracks, one for college and one for the trades.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cohen, I'll give you a chance to respond.
I completely agree.
All right, sounds good. Now I'll get back to these questions. Let's keep on the subject of education for a second. One of the more contentious issues at the legislature, and especially with the state budget, has been ESAs, which are empowerment scholarship accounts, also known as vouchers. Would you respect or require, if you had the chance, any restrictions on that program, or is it perfect as it is? And this time we're going to start with you, Mr. Cohen.
I mean, nothing's perfect. I mean, we can refine things to make them better, but I think as it stands, school choice is something that I would absolutely protect. As it stands, parents should have the right to be able to send their students to the school that is best of choice for them and their children. And as it stands today, when I look at the ESA program and what we have from a public education perspective, it is the ESA program actually saves money per pupil as performing with a public school side. And so as it stands, I've seen a lot of great things happen from charter schools, from ESA, and that is a right in which I would absolutely protect it with everything that I could.
And Dr. Jackson.
I would expand it. I wouldn't restrict it. I would totally expand the ESA program. It's the parents' money. This all goes back again to strengthening the family. It's parental rights to determine what their education is best for their children. Many children have struggles, and they need special teaching, special learning situations. And we have, especially in Arizona, we have so many options from homeschool to charter to private to religious schools. There's all kinds. The other issue is the public schools have had a monopoly. And they've had monopoly on students and they've had a monopoly on the money. And so in light of that, their standard of education has really just kept going in the tank. And it's so low that if they don't have competition, they're never going to improve the quality. We need public education. There's at least 1 million kids, probably more, in public education. So we need public education, but we need quality public education. And the only way we're going to get that is through competition. When they see their students leaving, parents pulling them out, when they're losing their money, then maybe they'll wake up. The financial budget issue, it's not education or the ESA program. There are many other reasons that we're struggling in our budget. So this is a red herring that we're looking at the ESA program relating to our budget. There's so many other areas that can be looked at.
Well, and if I may retort on that, I mean, I think that what we've got to look at is where we stand as a state right now. versus the rest of the country. And Andrew couldn't be more correct in the stance that we have consistently lowered our standard collectively of what it means for our students to graduate. And we've got to raise that standard collectively. And the House of Representatives and our government has the duty to make sure that we are providing the best opportunity when it comes to education for our students. And therefore, our own standard has to be moved forward. And I think that ESA, to his point and to my own, is that it's a critical component of having the opportunity to breed competition. But the goals that all schools have to be able to reach is to get a higher standard in place so that, again, as these more competitive positions become available within our state and our economy grows, it's our kids filling those roles and not somebody from another state.
Yeah, we're losing teachers because of the quality of education. Most teachers go to university and get trained to be a teacher, to go in and to teach with quality. That's what brings them pride. That's what gives them mission in life. But when they go into the public schools and it's such a low quality of education and they become babysitters in a sense, or they're not able to teach up to their capability, then teachers are going to look somewhere else. So I think that if we can increase the quality of education by having competitive educational choices, that's the future. That's the way we need to go.
I have another question about public education particularly, because there's been a teacher retention issue in Arizona for quite a while now. Do you support teacher pay raises in public schools? We can go back to you, Dr. Jackson, for this one.
I would if we cut the administration costs. In other words, put the money where it needs to go. But we have a problem because education's coming out of DC and through the unions, it's just creating a huge bureaucracy of administration. So the teachers, in my view, are getting shafted in their pay. So I would definitely increase pay for teachers as long as we're combining that with cutting the cost of administrations of public school.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, I think that the administrative costs are definitely too high, but I think that there are other areas within the budget where we should be looking at opportunities to pay our teachers more. Someone that goes to get their PhD to teach calculus at a high school level shouldn't be making $60,000 a year. And there are areas in which I see within the budget, an example being that the most recent state budget that was passed, each state legislator was given $20 million to spend within their district as they would see fit. Instead of us working that into the budget to support first responders, to support our energy issues, to support our teachers, instead, in order to pass the budget, Hobbs gave each one of those legislators $20 million with which to do with what they please. I would not allow that. That is irresponsible. And when I'm representative of District 14, there's absolutely no way that I would allow that to happen.
All right, thank you. There is a voter question coming in. It's for you, Mr. Cohen. It says, why did you pull a Democratic ballot? Can you respond to that?
I can, yeah. So this is the one thing that people have asked me the most. So I was an independent for a long time when I came into Arizona, and there were a lot of reasons behind that. Arizona has one of the highest independent components of from a voter perspective of any state, and so when I grew up, I grew up a Republican, and I grew up in a household in which we were extremely conservative, and my conservative views have not changed. As I was watching what was happening and things switching to a position in which we were starting to see Democrats position themselves in a place where they would potentially be in positions of power, as an independent, I viewed myself in that particular time as an opportunity to do what I could to vote within a primary that made sense to me, to try and take somebody that was going to be completely reckless and potentially destroy the state and position it appropriately. I've learned from that, and I think that ultimately where it stands today and where my viewpoints are is that I am a conservative constitutional Republican. I have led my life doing all of the things that help to achieve that. And if people want to ask questions to me directly associated to that at any time, I'm glad to answer that question. But like a lot of independents as they stand today that have strayed from the party, I think that it's time for them to see that we can come together as conservatives, as Republicans, and make the right choices that will help to move our state forward.
Great, thank you. Let's shift to abortion. On the question of abortion, do you support any exceptions for abortion, what point would you want to allow abortion in the state of Arizona? And Dr. Jackson, we can start with you on this.
I'm pro-life. I mean, totally pro-life, born, unborn. I marched and I was an activist very strongly marching in DC for the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So as in a personal position and also from a value position, especially my theological background, I am totally pro-life. And I say that in both, in the unborn and for the born. I'm for life. And but at the same time, I am not a king. And I'm not, when I'm elected, I'm not going to be a pastor of the legislature. I'm going to be a representative of Gilbert and a representative for the people of Arizona. And because Roe was overturned, it's gone back to the states. And we live in a democracy. I can't dictate what's going to happen. I think the people of Arizona need to choose. And I see only two options. One is limited abortion, whatever that could be, 12 weeks, etc., or unlimited abortion, which is the Democratic position today. Even though they use all kinds of terms, it's really unlimited abortion all the way up to birth and even maybe past birth. So these are the two options I think that the electorate in Arizona is going to have to, in the fall, in the general election, will have to make a decision. It's wouldn't be again voting on what my personal position would be, but I want to, as a legislature, I have to respect the democratic process in Arizona.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Cohen, same question to you. Any restrictions on abortion? If so, what kind?
Yeah, so I'm absolutely pro-life as well, but there are circumstances in which we have to represent our people appropriately, and I think that the life of the mother is something that has to be taken into account. We have to be able to provide health care to women that have pregnancies that are not viable, and in those situations, we can't expect it for them to carry along an unborn child that will ultimately not be viable. And so in those situations, they have to be able to get the proper health care associated to that. Additionally to that, I think in situations of rape and incest, I think there has to be stipulations associated to that where women have the option because they didn't have the option at the time. And those are the only stipulations that I would have.
I would like to ask, can you define a child that's not viable?
Heart's not beating, a situation in which the child will not be able to be born. The child is stillborn.
If it's not beating, it's dead.
Right. So that's an unviable pregnancy.
Okay, that's your definition, that non-viable means that they're dead? The baby is
there's no chance that that child will be able to be born.
okay.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move to a topic that I think doesn't get enough screen time, which is groundwater management. So in Arizona, another problem that we've got is depleted groundwater supplies, something the state legislature has a lot to do with, as a matter of fact. What is your stance on water policy and groundwater protection this time? Let's start with you, Mr. Cohen.
Boy, thank you for this question, because it's a big deal. So Andrew and I were at a debate together, or a forum, if you will. And the situation surrounding what was going on with Saudi Arabia and the alfalfa farms down in the southern side of Arizona came up. And I mentioned the fact that I was glad that we did not renew the leases. And I was positioned back against it. And I can't grasp where I'm sitting and looking at it from a farmer's perspective, because I was there, to look down in a well that you can see the water moving. And the gentleman says, our family's been here for 3 generations, and I've never seen that before. We have got to protect our groundwater in all situations. And in this forum, it was stated that well will never go dry. It'll be there forever. And that is an absolutely incorrect statement to have. Water is a precious, precious resource, and we have to manage it appropriately. And we don't need to be giving it away to foreign sources and foreign governments. We need to be giving it to our farmers, and we need to be giving it to the people that are living here in this state. And as we continue to grow, we can't have a situation in which we have anyone representing the state that is stating that we have an unlimited resource. We don't. We have got to protect it with everything that we possibly can within reason that doesn't stymie business, that doesn't stymie the economy, and allows us to be able to continuously grow and represent and understand that we are protecting something that will allow that growth to continue into the future.
Thank you very much. Dr. Jackson, back to you.
Obviously, I think Arizona historically has been been way out in front in water management. They have done a great job. Now, where we are facing ourselves now, there's probably three areas that really determine a civilization: water, energy, and food. And so it's all related, interrelated. But I have to say, of course, we need to focus in on water. I mean, it's very crucial that we do that and we invest in that. However, I'm really concerned about the Democratic Party making an apocalyptic situation over water, as everyone's going to die, which I have heard many times. They trying to scare a lot of people. What we need to do is get everybody to the table. And as somebody that has been to a lot of education all the way up to a doctorate and also teaching, research is so important in what we do. So I have to say, I don't have all the answers right now. I need, especially on this, it's a complex question. And I need to, when I'm elected, I'll go and I'm going to listen. I'm going to research. I need to have everybody at the table. I need to hear all the different positions. And that will give me the ability to, I think, be somebody that's effective as it relates to water management.
All right, great, thank you. And we'll get to another tricky topic, which is affordable housing. Arizona's housing supply is not what people would want it to be, and housing is very expensive at the moment. Gilbert especially is an area that's changed a lot. It's a lot less rural than it used to be. What is your stance on affordable housing? Do you have any policy plans in mind for getting our housing supply more affordable? Dr. Jackson.
Right now, I want to bring in the homeless issue as it relates to housing, because millions of dollars are being spent by our government, our cities, for shelter, for housing. So they brought the homeless issue into housing. So they called it unsheltered people or whatever it might be. We have an increased homeless problem. I think it's Phoenix and Tucson over the last couple of years has spent $500 million on the homeless situation in Phoenix primarily, but in both areas, $500 million. Okay, there's estimated 14,000 homeless in Arizona, primarily in Phoenix. One of the problems is once you start providing all this money and resources, number one, we have a homeless industry. And when the government, all the politicians want to feel, they feel good if they give money to the homeless. They don't do anything more, but they give the money to the homeless. And the problem is the government, that you have all of these different groups, trying to work with the homeless, many mom and pop groups, places and so the government doesn't just say, okay, which groups are effective and which ones aren't. They give money to everybody, because they have to be, equity. There has to be equality in it when how they distribute the money. The problem that I see, and also the idea of putting up in motels or giving them housing in such a way, most of that, the biggest problem is addiction and mental illness in the homeless. So you can give them homes, you can deal with that, but it's a real problem. This is my proposal. I've never heard it before. But my brother-in-law was homeless and was murdered by another homeless person. So I'm very sensitive to the whole homeless issue. But once you start dumping all these resources into the homeless under the name of housing, what happens, it gets out on the street and the homeless all over the nation will be coming to Arizona. So we have invested 500 more, almost probably more, if you look over a decade, I'm sure $1 billion into this. And the homeless problem has not been dealt with. This is my proposal. I've talked to several people about it, but I've never heard it. I think that we should be giving money or resources targeting the homeless from Arizona, citizens of Arizona. First, they're the priority that we have. They're part of our family. They're the ones that we're giving their tax money out. We should be giving it to those that are citizens, their families maybe live in Arizona. If we target those first and tell, all the other homeless that are coming in to get resources and get taxpayer money, we need to say, hey, go back to your own state.
You're a bit over, so I'm going to ask you to wrap it up. Thank you.
Okay. So anyway, I'm proposing more of an America First Homeless Act where we prioritize and focus, because we can have an impact. We can deal with addiction. We can deal with mental illness, and we can deal with some of the homeless, the home issue or the shelter issue. But right now, this is being brought together by the Democrats, and it's really devastating. It's really hurting our budget as well.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cohen, I'm going to give you some extra time on this one. Housing and homelessness.
Okay, they're two very separate things for me. So I think that ultimately the money that we would be talking about giving to the homeless, I want to give that to the people right now that need the help most to be able to own homes here in the state of Arizona. Our firefighters, our police, our people that are sitting there that represent us. And right now, because of inflation and because of what has happened with home prices, they cannot afford a home. And we have to be able to give them the opportunity to be able to do that. I think that you can do that through a voucher system that allows them to be able to get into a position where they can find the home that they deserve because they represent us and they protect us. I think the second side of that collectively comes down to people that are first-time home buyers here in the state of Arizona. We are growing jobs significantly right now, and we've got to be able to make sure that first-time home buyers have an opportunity to get that home. I don't disagree with what Andrew's saying when it comes to the homelessness aspect of things, but there are different things that I think we can do to set some money aside to be able to deal with that situation. But when it comes to the owning a home component of things, the state has got to be able to help our first responders and to help first-time homeowners, because that will ultimately bolster our economy as a whole. I think that when it comes to the homelessness issue, I think that there are several things that are happening right now. Mental health is a huge component of what I've positioned across, but we need to be able to help these people in ways that don't put us at risk in our neighborhoods at risk. As it stands right now, there are a tremendous amount of homeless and people that are going through situations that are being held within homes and neighborhoods. And we've got to get back to a position where we're looking at opportunities to create halfway houses in areas that are outside of neighborhoods and keeping them safe. I mean, we are having first responders show up to homes. These homes often 100, 200, 300 times in a single year using precious resources. And instead of doing that, we've got to look at a holistic system that allows us to be able to position these individuals in the place where they can get the help that they need while not putting our citizens at risk, and doing everything that we can to help make sure we have a plan where we're helping at the same time we're not hurting our citizens.
Can I respond to, I think it's unrealistic to think that they're two different issues, because from the budget perspective, they are not two issues. If you read the recent budget or the $500 million that were just spent, it was the homeless issue and the housing shortage issue have been brought together. And that's why so much money is being spent. The other thing that I think all that Joel said is good, but I'm just saying that it goes back to the two-tiered economic system. If you have people that, those that are making good money, they're going to afford houses. So the issue is those that maybe just have high school education. We need to have manufacturing jobs. We need to expand our economy so it's holistic. Then, and also students are graduating with huge debts. that they need to pay off. How are they going to purchase a home? So I think that we need to kind of look at that reality as well. We can't just keep bringing people in that are not able to get jobs here. And then it just continues to move toward more of a welfare system. So I would just encourage that, again, we focus in on more of expanding our middle class. And I think that will make a difference in affordable housing.
May I retort?
Yes.
So I think that ultimately, when you're looking at an area in which manufacturing across the United States and across the world, we're watching where chip manufacturing is shifting immensely into this country, with Arizona being one of the #1 states associated to it. So the term manufacturing, I think, to me, is shifting from what it would be, from what we know back in the day, to be industrial, to being associated to semiconductors and other components of that nature. And so while we're looking at all these plants being turned on, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where we've got to make sure that the kids coming out of our education system have the opportunity to take those middle class jobs, and we're not having an influx of people coming from other areas in which to take them. I think that those same individuals, once they get into a position where they have a median salary, should have an opportunity to own a home and not be stuck in an apartment building for a while. I think that we have to position ourselves to say, we want people to stay here in the state of Arizona. And part of getting people to stay here is having the opportunity to be able to afford a home.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about bipartisanship. I'm curious to know whether you guys would consider bipartisanship to be a good thing or a bad thing. Some lawmakers consider it, disloyalty to the party to work across the aisle, but others would argue it's a way to get things done. Mr. Cohen?
Well, I mean, there was an amazing statement made in a meeting that I was in, and it was, "I will always fight the good fight if I lose, even if I lose every single time." That doesn't help us move things forward. Now, that said, there are things that we absolutely cannot allow to happen in terms of who we represent. And I think that there are clear ways for us to be able to help get things passed that don't give away the ship associated to the things that we know and hold dear here in the state of Arizona. But if we're always at odds to a point that we can't pass anything, and we just position ourselves to be in a place where we're not representing the people that we serve, by negotiating and getting ourselves to a place in which we can pass laws appropriately or retract laws, which is what I would prefer, then what are we doing to serve the people? So it's not to say that you're going to give the farm away, or you're going to give away things that are ultimately going to get you positioned in a place where you make wrong decisions. But if you're not willing to have the conversations and negotiate appropriately, what are you going to accomplish? We have to be able to get to a point where politics functions in a way where we holistically represent the people as best as we possibly can, and that we, as the House of Representatives here in District 14, are positioning the best interests of our people as best as possible, knowing that in some cases we have to work in order to get bills passed by negotiation.
Dr. Jackson.
I think it's ideal in the past that we could say, look at the different parties and say, there's some middle ground, and we can kind of negotiate as it relates to that. Today, also coming from a classical liberal Democratic family in Seattle, I know that situation well. But my focus is on the Republican Party. I'm a Republican. And one of the reasons that people have really encouraged me to run is that I feel like they feel like I can bridge. The division right now is in the Republican Party. That's my concern, is that I think that I can be a part of a relational unity within the Republican Party that can make it a better party. And I think because of my background and because of my relationships, between the MEGA group and maybe the McCain group, I've been out to lunch with both sides. We agree on 99% of the policies. It's more of a style issue, which is the problem. So my focus will be on bringing unity in the Republican Party. That will be my focus. The problem is we have two worldviews. It isn't in the past. Our culture has changed. Everything has changed. The Democratic Party today has one specific worldview, and the Republicans have another specific worldview, and that creates a problem. So my focus will be on the Republican Party, bringing relational unity so that we can be a more effective party and have a future in Arizona as a majority. As it relates to working with others, of course, I'm open to that, as I said about the water issue, for example. I'm willing to hear every side, and really on any issue. I will listen to Democrats, but my focus will be on the Republican Party. That's what I'm being elected for.
Mr. Cohen, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, if I could. I mean, I think that there are things that we collectively hold dear that no matter what, we can't negotiate on. I mean, there are things like defunding the police, as an example. Like, there's absolutely no way that that should ever happen in the state of Arizona, and I would never allow that to happen. I think that when it comes to infrastructure, energy, those types of things, that's where there are opportunities for us to make sure that we're continually moving things forward. But to Andrew's point, we've got to make sure that we hold fast on the key components of things that we know if we head in the wrong direction, it's going to create a situation for us where we're turning into California. And as a business owner here within this state, that's probably my absolute biggest fear as we look at the fact that the Republican Party is hanging on the razor's edge of a majority within our government, is doing everything that we can to protect that and make sure that, again, and you said something very important, Andrew, that we are working together. That is probably one of the most critical components of everything that we could do as the Republican Party, is to stop the infighting and do what we can to look at the components of what makes us Republicans, what makes us conservative, and say, yep, those are the things that we know that we are going to position appropriately, stop the litmus test, and do what we can to make sure that we are collectively working together.
Dr. Jackson, you used the term MAGA Republican or McCain Republican. I'm curious to ask, what brand of Republican would you say that you are?
Well, you know, in 2022, almost by accident, I don't know if you know what Spaces is on Twitter. Do you, Cameron, do you know what that is? Spaces? It's on Twitter. It's a technology, a platform that Twitter established. This was before Elon Musk took over. And it basically is where somebody on Twitter can open up a room, and it's almost like have a radio station. And I began to do interviews with politicians, especially on the Republican side, and then give voters an opportunity to ask questions. And it turned out to be a great format. And during that time, I was very exposed to, again, a number of groups. The problem during that time was style, the style of communication. And there was too many name calling. There was too much, infighting, if you want to call it that. And it damaged the Republican Party, and it damaged the 2022 election. So I would probably lean, again, McCain might be related to the Reagan. I come from a Reagan background. However, Trump's policies in 2026 really got me going. I love those policies because many of them were what I grew up in. Limited government, no wars, no more unnecessary wars, civil rights, supporting the working class in America. These are some of the things that President Trump emphasized, and it was a fresh message for me. And so in that sense, I don't wear a hat, I don't wear a label, but in my heart, those policies is where I would stand.
Mr. Cohen, are you a MAGA Republican or a McCain Republican or some other flavor of Republican?
Well, it's these terminologies that drive me crazy, right? Because at the end of the day, I mean, collectively, we should be Republican. And we are focused on, when we first got started with this, there was a poll that we did to go out and find out how people identify themselves. And there's 3 or 4 different sections of how people define themselves as Republican. I think that collectively, again, if we're going to get back to what it means to be collectively working together, we've got to focus on the things that Trump has discussed in the past that make us great as a party. And that is, to the point that Andrew made, limited government. I mean, I think that we have to make sure that we are focused on making sure the government stays out of our way. Free market economies, making sure that we're focused in areas in which there's minimal government regulation and that we're able to grow our businesses the way that we want. Strong national defense. If you speak to anybody that was in the military while Trump was in office, they said that the military was as good as it has been in decades. And I think that overarchingly, it's our values that really should define us as a group collectively. I focus on the Constitution and I make sure that I deliver on the Constitution, but our traditional values, our national defense, free market economies, and overall limited government, that's what defines the Republican Party, and that's what I will define as state representative.
All right, thank you. Elections. One of the most common voter questions we're getting is, were the 2020 and 2022 elections safe and secure? Dr. Jackson.
Well, I don't like the word safe and secure, but this is an article that I would encourage everyone to read on the 2020 election. And it's by Molly Ball in Time magazine. And it basically exposes what the Democratic Party and the left, how they organized during COVID, during the elections. Whether you want to call it rigged, I don't call it stolen, but they definitely outsmarted the Republican Party, all the way from organizing the riots to many other things. So I'd encourage everyone to read that because it really will give you a better light on the 2020 election. On the 2022 election in Maricopa County, I don't like calling people criminals without due process of law. This is where I was having a problem, is people were declaring that certain people were criminals, that they broke the law, and they were using their names, which puts their families at risk, which I had a real problem with. But as it relates to Maricopa County, I just think they're incompetent. It's like almost all government and bureaucracies. There is an incompetency and no one gets fired. And so we have seen a perpetual experience with Maricopa County. And as Maricopa County continues to grow in population, the Maricopa County election process just is not able to handle this. So even though they say they're doing this and that, I am encouraged that the legislature has been totally focused, a lot of bills on this election integrity. And I think it's really important, because if we don't have safe elections with integrity, then we don't have a democracy. So I do think it's a major thing to focus in on. I just don't, some of the terminology I don't like, especially when it gets into calling people criminals.
All right, Mr. Cohen.
I mean, election integrity is everything, and there definitely were anomalies that need to be addressed. And I agree that we are doing our best right now from a state perspective to do what we can to help make sure that we are keeping our elections secure. I think that going back, when I look at the issues associated to the election, there were components like there was a subgroup called Republicans for Hobbs that took away votes from Republicans that desperately needed them. And I think that it gets back to what we have to do to be able to work together associative to elections. And we have to do what we can to protect our elections and put the right procedures in place to validate that we are getting the right ballots in from the right people and nobody that's dead or anything of that nature. And at the same time, we've got to make sure that we're working together, not getting stuck on situations that the Democrats, I think, are exploiting overall in terms of what's creating a division within our party, and do what we can to strengthen ourselves, strengthen the laws, and position ourselves to win moving forward.
Yeah, I would say too that it's very important that the Republican Party really comes together and don't just keep hashing the past. We have to really cast vision for the future of Arizona. So even though the election integrity has to be very high on the agenda at the legislature, we can't get caught up in all the arguments of the past, because they're never ending. So I really encouraging those that I know in the Republican Party, really let's start focusing in on the future, and let's really have an impact in Arizona.
And it's unfortunate to see what we've seen in certain circumstances. I know that Andrew himself has been in a situation where he was brought into these elections and has followed through appropriately, but there's been called into question things associative to his candidacy, and it's not helping anybody to have those situations.
What is that?
Well, just the fact that why you were originally called into a slate and then you were
Oh,
not.
I see. Yeah, that's a whole story.
Yeah.
I would like to get into the story, but I think I only have time for one more question, and I would like to talk about the border briefly. So the border is largely a federal issue, but the state has taken a lot of action on the border recently. What, as a state lawmaker, would you like to see the state do on border security? And Mr. Cohen.
So I went down to the border, and my wife and I visited down there for 2 days to get an understanding of truly what was happening. And we visited with various officials, Border Patrol, a lot of officials to get a good grasp of what it is that's taking place. And what is amazing is that when you stand there on the border and you see it for yourself, before people step in, they often will get rid of their identification. And we were sitting and looking at passports and driver's licenses and airplane tickets that were from China and from Russia and people that had floated themselves in here from all over the place. And a gross percentage of what's coming in right now across our southern border are not people that are seeking refuge from South America. These are people that are coming in from countries that have absolutely zero interest in any sort of positive impact associated to our state or our country. And so if the federal government isn't going to do what it takes to help protect our people, we as a state then have to take things into our own hands. I've been glad to see some of what's happening right now in order to increase the amount of power and money and funding that's going into the southern border, but it's not anywhere near what it needs to be. And so what we've got to figure out together as a state is, what are we going to do if the federal government isn't going to step in? And I'll just close out with this thought. Politics is an amazing game in a lot of different ways. And before this limitation of 5,000 illegal immigrants was stated by the Biden campaign, there were 300,000 people that were granted amnesty. And they know the game. They know what it is that they're doing, and they're getting positioned for the upcoming election. I will do everything I can to help make sure that we are protecting the people of this state from illegal immigration. I'm for immigration. My grandfather was a coal miner in Canada. He fought hard to get here. He fought in World War II. He was an electrician in California, and did what he could to get to this country, and he fought to get here. And people deserve that opportunity because that's who we are. But illegal immigration must be stopped. And if the federal government will not step in, we have to step in and apply what we can to protect our people.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
We need to elect President Trump in 2024. And we need to elect in 2026 a Republican governor. And the full executive branch needs to become Republican. If that doesn't happen, there's very little hope that Arizona is going to do anything meaningfully. Now, this is kind of the security and safety issue that is broader. The border is part of the crime that we're facing. If we don't deal with safety and security, basically law and order and the legal justice system in Arizona, we're not going to have an environment for healthy families or a great business environment. And a lot of that is being fed by the open border, the drugs that are coming in, sex trafficking, human trafficking, and a lot of the situation that we're seeing even in Phoenix or Tucson. Some of the major problems is coming from the border. So the main first step has to be the election of President Trump in 2024. And we need to be strategic in making sure that we have a Republican governor in 2026, and also the whole executive branch needs to become Republican. If we do that, we can work with the federal government and really have an impact in securing our border.
And the only way we do that is if we work together, right, Andrew?
Exactly. We need to work together. All right, well, it is time for our closing remarks. And since opening statements started with Mr. Cohen, we're going to start off closing remarks with you, Dr. Jackson.
Okay, I'm running because Arizona is literally an inch away from becoming California. It's very possible, a high possibility, that the Republicans are going to lose the Senate in 2024. I've talked to many in the legislature. They all feel the same way. Unfortunately, if that happens, a very small minority in the House are going to have to stand strong. And I have the leadership, I have the character, I have the background to be able to stand. I will stand, and I will really advocate for the people of Gilbert and also for Arizona, the ones that really want to make a difference so that Arizona will not become California. When I am in the legislature, I will work for relational unity in the Republican Party. If we do not come together as a party strategically and work together and not call each other names in the public, but work behind closed doors to come together, we can have a major impact. But we need to function as a team. We can't be self-promoting. We need to really emphasize and bring health back to the Republican Party. And I believe I could be a part of that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cohen.
As I've stated throughout this, I think that it's key to understand that my very being is rooted in protecting what has created a situation for my family to live the American dream. And when I, again, think about my son today, who's getting ready to go into air assault school and what he's dedicating himself to, I myself, with every fiber of my being, am dedicating myself to the people of Arizona and to protect the things that have allowed us to live the lives that we have thus far. I cannot tell you the passion that I have for what I've seen within this state, the growth that has occurred, and juxtaposed to that, the razor's edge of what can happen if we fall off the wrong side and start approaching liberal policies and what will happen to this state. I will protect this state. I will hold conservative policies, and I will tell the truth when it comes to the things that I say and I do. And I appreciate everybody listening to our debate today.
Thank you very much. This concludes our debate. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating, and to the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves before the July 30th primary election. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.